a shadow box card for you today for the video with a real pretty neutrals with just a hint of gold, just a nice shimmer to it. So I'll show you what we'll be using. The dies in today's video include the berry sprig and the pine twig. We'll be using those to accent our floral element. I'm going to just be using this tiny little snowflake die from the Bold Snowflake Flurry. In the background, I've got the Rustic Twig Wreath. The sentiment is the Happy Christmas die. And I'm going to be using the solids from the Poinsettia Edition set. Here is the actual shadow box, and you can see there's all sorts of little extra bits you can use in there, and we'll be using many of these in the card as well. And I'm going to add a frame with the stitched lattice frame because these have been designed to work with your shadow boxes perfectly. A couple other little items we'll be using. I've got some vellum we're going to be cutting our flowers out of, and doing a bit of embossing with the Star Swirls embossing folder. I've got some Enchanted Gold gilding wax we'll be adding to the background, and a little bit of ice snow just to add a touch here and there. I've got the satin ribbon. This is the, I believe this is the antique white, so it's a bit of a creamy color, and some flat back pearls. And this is one of our new items that I'm just in love with. This is called Metallic Links, and this is the gold. And I kind of want to show you just a little sneak preview of this. It's very metallic, but it's stretchy, and there's just so many things you can do with this. So when we get to that, I'll talk about it more in detail to you. All right, let's pop these out of the way. Lots of bits for today's card. First thing I want to do is show you the shadow box and how to cut it. Now it comes with all these little bits in it, and you have what I call the frame to the shadow box, and each of them has an inside cutting edge to them. So you can actually use it flat without the recessed boxes to it, or you can cut it with them in, and that's the way I prefer to do it, and then raise it with some mounting foam so it has a real shadow box feel to it. So you just want to tape these into place on all the little sections, and each of the shadow boxes has a little design element around the edges of all the boxes. This one has a debossed square feature, so we'll show you what that looks like when we cut it. Bring in our cutting plates, pop that down, run that through. Okay. Now I have one already done ahead of time, but I'll show you what this looks like. And what I like to do is you'll get about half of these that will pop out, and then you want to go back through and pop them through so you have them all equal and even, okay? So I've got one I've done ahead of time where all the little bits, or most of the little bits, have been popped out, and I've added some mounting foam to the back of this, and that will help create that shadow box look to it, okay? So we'll come back to that in a few minutes. Pop this back into place. In fact, let's take all of our bits out of this. There we go. And you can always use these to make other cards too, so don't get rid of those. You can use them for later. Now, I'm going to go forward with a little bit of taupe card. So it's just a tiny bit darker than the milk, and use it with the Star Swirls embossing folder. Yeah, let's pop these down. Bring our platform back. Put that into place. There we go. Okay. I have to admit, this is one of my favorite embossing folders. You have just beautiful detail with that. And what I want to do is kind of highlight that. So I'm going to bring in my gilding wax and go over the top and just add a little bit extra to those swirls. So when you pick the card up and you tilt it a little bit, it'll catch the light. This Enchanted Gold is very subtle. It's not a bright gold, which I absolutely love. I'll do that. Pop that down, and let me wipe that off my finger. And one of the other things you can do too, and let me move a bit of things out of the way here, is you can take a paint pen and you can add a few bits with a paint pen, and just by tapping it, You can add some little splatters to it. There we go. You can let that dry for a few minutes. In fact, I'll tell you what, let me give you a quick measurement while that's drying. This piece here is 6 1/4 by, oops, sorry, wrong way. Let's try that again. 5 by, yeah, 6 1/4. Okay, so what I want to do is take this shadow box and put that over the top. So I'm going to go ahead and peel the backing off of my foam pieces. And because I've got the wax and a little bit of the gold paint pen there, I think I'll add a bit of mounting foam. And I wanted to mention too, if you want those deboss areas not to poke out, you can add a little bit of tape to the back and they'll stay in place, or really thick card will get that to do that too. I personally like the way they look when they're cut out. So I like to pop them all out myself. There we go. Okay. Pop that over the top. And let's see if we need any trimming. I think we're in good shape there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is add a frame. Now I have used the outer stitch edges here from this set, the stitched lattice frames, and I've done the outer and the inner one with the taupe, and then I've used the 2 outer ones with the gold. So I've created a multi-layer frame there that I'm going to just add with a little bit of glue to the top. You can raise it with some mounting foam if you like, your call. And enter that right around the edge there. Oops. Get it equally set up around that. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and put it onto my backing piece, which I've also added the milk pierced page, the taupe color edge there, and the gold around that. Okay. So now we've got the shadow box ready to go and fill up. Okay, so first thing we want to do, I think will work with this section here. I have cut one of the rustic little twig frames or wreaths out of the gold. So I'm going to put that into the background, and I just think it'll show up really nice and very, very subtle against that taupe background there. A little bit of glue. We'll pop that up into the corner of that larger piece. Okay. So now, give that a second to set up. I'm going to go back to the Happy Christmas. Now I've cut 2 of these already. I've cut a gold one and I've cut one out of milk card. So I'm going to just spray the back of this one with some spray adhesive. And let me get both sides of it. I'm going to use the gold as a shadow, so we'll offset that ever so slightly. And move that down. Pop that into place. Oops. And just tease that into place there so it's just a slight bit offset. I'm going to add a little bit of spray glue to the back of that piece now. And because I've got some embossing there, I think it's always good to add a little bit more glue in strategic larger sections there, and that will really hold it nicely. There we go. Pop that down so you can just see the twig frame from behind it. Get a nice little Happy Christmas coming through. My finger's a little sticky there. There we go. Okay, so up in this top corner here, I've used this snowflake, and let me just find that one. I've cut 2 of them, and that was from the Bold Snowflake Flurry. So I'm just going to glue this one directly down into place because it is very fine. But I'm also going to add a tiny bit of glue to the center here, just as a little accent. Put a couple little sprinkles of my ice snow on that as well. And that will dry in place and give it a really pretty little shimmer. There we go. And the next thing, I'm going to go to the stocking, because you've got all these little bits here. So I've got a little stocking here. I'm going to pop this one over here. I've got one in gold I've done, and I've got one in white I've done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of glue just on that top part. I'm going to dip it into my ice snow, and then I'm going to trim that. Just trim the top of that off. Pop that right onto the top there. Get that nice into place. Okay, so then When this one dries, you'll have one that looks just like this. Let me see if I can get a hold of that. Like that. And I've got a little bit of mounting foam on the back of that. I'm going to pop that into this section here. Above that, the present that is also in the set, and I've used a little bit of paint pen just to highlight the little ribbon area. So I've got a gold on top of that. Put that right into place. And down in this bottom section, we're going to go with all the little ornaments. So I've cut these in gold and in milk. The top, I've added a little bit of paint pen to the gold ones. And we are going to center these so that they're gold and then milk and then gold. So I'll put these two gold ones on the side, like that. The center one, which I've used the round one, pop that into place. And then I've got two more of the milk ones I've done. And there again, let's see, I've got a smaller paint pen here. I'm going to just put a little bit on that top part right there, just to highlight that. In fact, let me get that on there a little bit better. There we go. And a little bit right here, just to make it look like the top of the ornament. Pop that down. So now we've got all the little sections filled up. So I'm going to go on to the focal element. So I've cut the poinsettia out of vellum. So what I want to do is add an edge to that. So I'm going to go back to my paint pen and just draw it along the edge of this all the way around. It's really pretty. It just adds a nice little element to it and makes it very festive looking. There's one more. And let me get that side and that side. You set those aside to dry for a few seconds, and then what you have is a really pretty element that looks like this. Okay, so we'll build up our floral element. I've got the satin ribbon. I've used just the little thin piece of the antique white. Put that on in place down in the corner with a glue dot. And then we'll show you the metallic links. Okay, now this is really interesting because you don't need very much of this. And you can stretch it and make it whatever you want. So I like to use a glue dot. And I form the bows using a glue dot on a little piece of this and put it down into place. Just like that. And then get another little piece of it. And cut it just about like that. So it doesn't take very much. Stretch it a little bit, form it, put it on here like this. So you can get it into place and stretch it to whatever size bow loop you want. There we go. You can add in some legs to it if you like to. And get that on there. And then we are going to hide that glue dot with our flowers. So I'm going to pop this into place. Got the larger one here. Put that right over the top. And I've also done a smaller one. And we're going to just pop that up on the edge there. So you've got that links just coming out, and it's such a pretty little gold look to that. And then we're going to finish this off with some pine sprigs and twigs, and we will use our glue and just pop these underneath the edges of our flower. And you've got, oops, sorry, wrong side. You've got a right and a left facing here, so you can put that one on there. I've done one in milk and one in gold. So you've got all sorts of little additions you can add there. And if you want to trim them, you can cut them a little shorter. Pop that one underneath there. And berry sprig here. Put that down in there and get all your little tails going underneath the right way. There we go. And you have a beautiful, oops, beautiful shadow box card that I think anybody would love to receive at Christmas time. And there's just so many different options. Don't forget, you can use your shadow box this way, upside down. It's up to you how you fill all your little shadow boxes there. hope you've enjoyed today's video, and don't forget to subscribe.